And Marianne, welcome. Welcome.
Happy New Year. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I have to tell you, I don't know that there's been one interview that, and I've done tons of them over the last year that I've been more excited to do than this one. So thank
Oh,
you so
thank
much
you.
for
Thank
ending the year
you.
with
Thank
me.
you.
So Marianne, I'm just going to jump right in with you.
Okay.
This group and this community has been going today through this process of really manifesting. And what we've been focusing on is the shadow and the light. So many of us
Okay.
focus all on the light work, light work, light work. And we're
hmm
here to integrate it to try to have a fulfilled life. And in your book, Tears to Triumph, you talk so much about how to turn pain into power. And
hmm
I find that so many of us were afraid to kind of face the pain in our lives. And I want to know why you feel that leaning into our pain is an important part of our growth.
Well, the fact that you don't look at it, the fact you don't deal with it doesn't make it go away.
Yeah.
It just buries it down very deeply. And we heal emotionally and psychologically the same way we heal physically through a kind of detox process. It's like a fever. It's something that has to come up in order to get out. And so our pain becomes a toxin in the system unless we are willing to allow it to alchemize. And that can only happen by looking at it and dealing with it. Now, there's a line in the Course in Miracles where it says, I cannot take from you what you will not release to me. We
Mm.
have to bear witness. And when we bear witness to our pain, let's be very clear about why we don't want to look at it sometimes. One of the reasons we don't want to look at it is because when we do, we have to look at our part in creating it.
Uh,
Sometimes people are dealing with the pain of childhood trauma when we genuinely were victimized. That's certainly true. But a lot of the pain people don't want to look at is that I behaved so foolishly,
yeah.
that I sabotaged the relationship, that I was so stupid, that I talked when I should have shut up, that I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. That's what we don't want to look at. We don't want to look at our own character defects. We don't want to look at our own shadows. So we sort of play this game with ourselves. It's too painful. No, it's too embarrassing. That's what that pain is. It's too humiliating sometimes. But until we do look at it, until we say, wow, I have this pattern that is so stupid and it undermines me constantly and it repels love and it repels opportunity. Until we look at it, number one, release it into the hands of a higher power if you see it as a spiritual issue. Now, some people don't see it in terms of handing it over to a higher power. They're still in the mode of, well, I can work on this. Yeah, good luck, because many of us find that at the age of 40, 50, or 60, we're still working on something that theoretically we should have gotten over when we were 25.
Hello.
That's where the spirituality comes in. You say, dear God, take this from me. I don't know how to change. If I knew how to change this pattern within myself, I would have done it by now. Clearly, the trigger is too deep. Clearly, at some point in my life, might have been in childhood, might have been in my adulthood, the wires got crossed, some pain happened, and it just put me into a place where it's like my system is jammed. And in situation after situation, I don't know how to open my heart and still get my needs met. So I need help here. I need a miracle here. I need some divine help here. And then the third part is willingness to change, knowing as soon as you do face the pain, do face your part in manifesting these emotional car crashes all the time. Once you surrender it, once you release it, once you ask for the miracle of healing, that situation, wherever it is, with whomever, will come back again. And this time, you'll have a chance to behave differently. Now, what most of us find, Justin, is that it's like putting on a suit of clothes and you're not quite comfortable in them yet.
Right.
So the situation will come back and you might not get it perfect, but at least you'll know when you're doing your old pattern. Even while you're doing it, you'll go, I can't believe I'm doing that. I can't believe I'm saying this. And it won't feel right to you anymore. You'll say, why am I behaving in such a needy way that's going to push him away? Why am I behaving in such a controlling, negative way? I can just see the look on people's faces. Why am I doing this? That doesn't mean the first time out you'll really be able to change yet. This is why it sometimes feels like things get worse before they get better.
Yes.
But the Course in Miracles says actually what's happening is that they're not worse. You were just anesthetized to your own BS before. This time you're like, oh my God. And then the next time it's like, I'm going to I'm going to do a little faking it till I make it. You know, they say in AA that it's easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than it is to think yourself into a new way of acting.
Hello.
One
We're
of the
dropping
things that I've
bombs
seen,
here.
one of the things that I've seen
Yeah.
in my life is when there's a change I need to make, and I pray about it and I say, okay, I get that this personality characteristic on my part undermines, sabotages me all the time. I don't know how to do it different, because the way I've been doing it is a defense mechanism based on childhood wounding, whatever wounding. It protected me for a while. Now it actually makes things worse. I don't know what doing it differently would look like.
Yeah.
I either didn't have parents who modeled it for me or experiences that paved the way for it. And one of the things, Justin, that I've seen over and over that's so amazing is I'll find myself in the presence of someone who simply wasn't scathed in the same way I was, who behaves at that kind of a moment in a functional way. And I go, oh, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You mean you could just state your truth in a sort of kind and elegant and sophisticated way without yelling it and stomping your feet? Yeah, that's how healed people do it. You mean you do that and people will listen to you and things will work out? Yeah, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
So we have to look at the pain of those situations that didn't go right before we get to the point of knowing what was my part in this.
Yeah.
And you do that and you ask for healing and you are willing to change and then you make the changes. You know, maybe it won't all be perfect the first time, but it's a journey. And then I just want to say before we get off that topic, you know, the story of the prodigal son, that the father was happier to see the son who left and came back than to see the son who never left. A bone, when it is broken, comes back together again and is stronger even than it was before it broke. One of the things I've seen over and over again is that some of the places where I'm the best is where I used to be my worst.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of that. This is so beautiful because of that strength that you build. And I hope all of you are writing these down on your golden nuggets page from Marianne that we have in the workbook. And we have a whole section in the workbook, Marianne, of golden nuggets from you. And you've already given us so much. And I want to pull a thread on one piece here, because I think a big part of what discourages people when they're doing the work, right? Like they've sat and they've manifested and they've wrote the vision and they've worked on themselves and they've been to therapy, and the situation, like you said, comes up again and they mess up, or they're in the same situation and they think that that means they're failing. But what you're saying is it actually means that it's coming up for us again, for us to see our pattern differently and have the potential to even choose differently. And each time it shows up, as we do it different each time, that's how we actually grow and get stronger. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm not enrolled in the myth that we've all tried so hard.
Yeah.
I don't see, I mean, what is this? We've all tried so hard. No, we haven't. No, actually, most people I know who say that actually haven't. That means I tried a few times. It means I have been trained by my culture to get what I want when I want it. And I tried to be nicer. Why wasn't that enough? That's what we're really saying. So let's just be more honest and real with ourselves. We, most of the time when we are stymied by things like that, we have not yet made the effort at serious personal transformation that is necessary. Yeah. And of course, it doesn't always come easy. Of course, we rise and then we fall and then we rise. You know, personal transformation, just like historical transformation, is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You know, there's a line in the Course in Miracles. Miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. A lot of times we have so much to give, but there's something about the way we behave or something about the way we think that blocks our opportunities to give our gifts. And that's the greatest pain. The greatest pain is that most of us feel like racehorses standing at the gate, and the damn gate is locked. We're ready to go. And for those of us from a spiritual perspective, whether it's God, Muhammad, Jesus, angels, the actual acknowledgement of a higher power that can open that door and do for us what we can't do for ourselves. That's the biggest blockage sometimes, is that we're still trying to be the healer when we're in fact the wound.
And this is why, Marianne, I've heard you, one of the things that I've heard you say again and again and again as I've studied your work and watched videos and the whole thing over the course of many years in my life now is that every problem is in essence a spiritual problem.
Absolutely.
That every problem is in essence a spiritual problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so
mm-hmm.
I want you to just, you've unpacked that in a great way already, but what I'm thinking about on the collective level, when we're looking at our government and collective and the things that are happening, one of the things that I know, is what we say is like, oh, when there's one finger pointing out, there's three fingers pointing back to us. So what does the state of what's happening on the collective level say about us as individuals and how it is that we might need to heal in this process spiritually?
All right, well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I got an email from you saying that we were doing this tonight because we are serving through mental health services and mindfulness disadvantaged youth in the United States. Justin, in the richest country in the world, there should be no disadvantaged youth. Amen. Hello.
Yeah.
There should not be disadvantaged youth. And can we be real about why they have mental health issues? Poverty and near poverty create endless chronic trauma and anxiety. Having violence in your neighborhood, abuse, all kinds of dysfunctions, collective and personal dysfunctions that arise from poverty and disadvantage. So when you say, how does it show up in the collective? This is not a charity issue. This is a justice issue. And we can't approach it just as a charity issue. We're all going to get together and we're going to raise funds to help disadvantaged youth. No, we need to take the next step, which is we're going to commit to the creation of a country in which there are no disadvantaged youth, which means the eradication of poverty, the realization that all of these situations arise from bad public policy that serves a very, very few people at the expense of the many. Every school in America should be a palace, a world-class palace of education and arts and culture. So, this idea that I'm so light-filled because I'm charitable, we really have to grow beyond this, evolve beyond this, mature beyond this. And that's what it means to realize that the shadow of the collective is held in place to the extent to which we buy into the mythology and the propaganda that makes us feel that we're not responsible.
Ooh, that is it. So we spiritually, we're tethered to these issues in a way that we're not even allowing ourselves to think big enough, to dream big enough, which is actually the reason why I called it the Dream Bigger Foundation. One of the big missions of the Dream Bigger Foundation, which I wasn't even planning on saying to you here, but our big mission is we believe in a world, and we envision a world in which racism does not exist and everyone has the possibility and potential to live at their full power. And it's so interesting because when I go in places and I say that, like, we envision a world in which racism doesn't exist. And what we're doing is we're standing in that future and asking, what is it that we did now? People look at me like, that's not possible. The cynicism comes in, right? If we believe in a world in which there are no disadvantaged youth, people are like, that's not realistic. Where there's no hunger, that's not realistic. The cynicism I find that is inside of sometimes our culture is what stops us. Can you speak to that a little bit and how that impacts us?
The problem for many in our community is not just cynicism, but cheap and shallow positivity.
Yeah.
So most people, when they think, I love you.
I'm loving it. I'm like,
most people, when we think in terms of dream bigger, if we hear that you're doing something like this, we think the Dream Bigger Foundation, most people go into, that's so great. Help these young disadvantaged youth dream bigger. No, you dream bigger. Dream bigger. Dream of a society in which there are no disadvantaged youth. Now, when you bring in the spiritual element, it's not just about creating a world in which there is no racism. It's about realizing that on the level of ultimate reality, there is no racism.
Yes.
So beyond the veil of illusion, which is this mortal hallucination, there is a world of ultimate oneness, which is our ultimate eternal truth. There is no racism there. We don't even see ourselves as bodies. We don't see ourselves as separate. And so the last thing we're registering is color. Okay. Now there is a gap between ultimate reality and the mortal reality that we all know within the 3 dimensions that's dominated by such phenomena as racism, poverty, etc. Our job on the earth is to close the gap.
Yes.
To close the gap. That's what it means. Heaven and earth shall be as one, means that they will no longer exist as 2 separate states. How do we close the gap? We close the gap by becoming people in whom there is no gap. By becoming people ourselves who extend our perception beyond the world of the problem to the world of the ultimate reality, which gives us the power to invoke it into expression.
It's about who we become, is what you're saying, who we become even just internally, which then impacts the actions that we're making to close this gap. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the universe is both self-organizing and self-correcting. You and I are on the earth to be immune cells. Think about what happens to the body when the body is injured or there's sickness. Now, the truth of the matter is the body can take quite a large amount of sickness or injury as long as there's a healthy immune system. The same is true of civilization. A lot of problems can occur as long as people are awake enough to gobble it up and say, well, we're not going to have any of that shit. Yeah. Right? That's an immune cell that's working. Our problem is we have a compromised immune system, either through disengagement, cynicism, cheap, false positivity, or whatever. We're not handling the problem. And that's what 2022 has got to be. Because 2021 is a year of such reckoning. Our karma is upon us. Cause and effect is having its way with us. And we are now having to deal with various stresses, which if they existed alone, the pillars of our civilization could probably absorb, but which are happening too close together, too frequently, and too intensely. If it were only COVID, if it were only health issues, if it were only wealth inequality, if it were only criminal justice issues, if it were only police brutality, if there was only systemic racism, if there was only this or only that, but there's so much coming at us that we're constantly playing whack-a-mole trying to fix this issue or fix that issue. When really, as you were saying earlier, every problem is a spiritual problem. As it says in the Course in Miracles, there's really only one problem and one answer. The problem is your separation from God, which means your separation from love. And when we stand in total love, we become miracle workers. And that's why we're on the earth. If you're an artist, well, in the field of art, we're going to close the gap. Why? Because of artists like me. If I'm in the field of business, well, in the field of business, we're going to start closing the gap. Why? Because of people like me. If we're in education, we're going to start filling the gap. Why? Because of people like me. So whatever field your dharma, whatever field your passion says, boy, in 2022, I want to really be a kick-ass business person, artist, politician, teacher, lover, parent, whatever it is, I am going to stand to say I am willing to perform a priestly function.
Yes.
That's what happened when Moses came down from the mountain and they said, what did he tell you? He said, I will make of you a priestly people who will stand forth in any area and say, I am expressing the alternative. I am expressing what's possible. The way we could do peace building, the way we could do education, the way we could do business, the way we could do politics. On the other side of this insanity and dysfunction and mean-spiritedness and disconnection between head and heart, there's another way we can be on the planet. And at this point, Justin, it's going to be one or the other. We're going to fall or we're going to rise. It's not going to continue like this. We're going to either experience, as we're already starting to see, the fall of Rome, or we're going to experience what we're also starting to see, the struggle for the world struggling to be born.
Yeah.
And that world is one in which there are no disadvantaged youth. The very idea, every American should find the very concept intolerable.
Yes.
So we're going to move beyond charity now to justice. No amount of private charity can compensate for a basic lack of social justice. We need to take a stand for a world in which we love one another the way God loves us. And that's no child, not only in this country, but in this world, would be left without food, would be left without housing, would be left without education. When that becomes our commitment, we will have the world of peace. And until then, we will continue in the direction we're moving, and it's not a positive direction.
Oh, and we are all, and ooh, I have to tell you, I'm just like, my whole body is electrified right now with this energy, Marianne. And this is like a part of when you were in your campaign for the presidency. Like, I was just so excited every time I heard you talk, because I am like so with you on this vision, this bigger vision, and closing the gap. And one of the things that I remember you saying on the campaign trail often, and we're not going to dig into politics too much here, even though it's all connected. But
it's all politics, Justin. So let's not avoid the word.
No, it's not going to avoid it. But I think people will see how this ties in. So you talked a lot about not just waging war, waging peace.
Yeah.
And I thought that was revolutionary. We don't hear people talking about that often. But one of the things that I'm very curious about, and I've always wanted to ask you, is when we think about waging peace and putting like love at the front of the line, and what we're dealing with are people, whether it's a collective body or just someone in our personal lives, who are actually intentionally causing us harm. Like, how do I, as a person, wage peace or stand in love when what I'm dealing with is something that is intentionally harming me?
Because of the deep connectivity between intentional harm on the personal level and the collective level, I'd like, if it's okay, to articulate what the basic issues are involved in waging peace. A lot of people, I lived in California for a long time, and California is sort of ahead of the curve in terms of integrative thinking, all that kind of thing. And so for many years, I've understood about integrative health models. I've understood that the old allopathic healing model is that you don't take care of your body particularly, you don't cultivate better health. And then when sickness almost inevitably arrives, you just seek through external means to eradicate or to suppress the symptom. That old allopathic model has given way to an integrative approach where you realize you don't just fight sickness, you cultivate health.
Yeah.
So when we talk about waging peace, it's the same thing. You don't just wait till conflict arises and then seek to suppress it or eradicate it, particularly when there's, at this point in our world and in the way politics operates in America, so much money to be made on perpetuating the conflict.
Yeah.
Rather, you create peace. You wage peace the same way you proactively create health.
And there we go.
Now, the problem we have in the world, and you said we're not going to talk about politics, but we need to get over that too, because all the politics is our collective behavior. So much of the dysfunction we see results from bad public policy. And as Gandhi said, politics should be sacred. Politics should come from this deeper level of conversation. Right now in our world, there are billions of dollars to be made making war, waging war. There are no corporate profits to be made on waging peace. What there is, however, is the possibility the human race will survive another 100 years. The war in Afghanistan, for instance, cost $2.3 trillion. $2 trillion of that went directly to defense contractors. And right now, children are starting to starve in Afghanistan because when we left it, it was a spectacular failure. Why? Because our policies were not geared towards creating an Afghanistan that could stand on its own 2 feet, except on the level of the military. We were enabling a dysfunctional, even corrupt government, et cetera. It was more about waging war than waging peace. So until we address these political issues, it's a political issue that climate change is the problem that it is. I'm sorry. It has to do with extraction, fossil fuel extraction, human behavior that is causing all this. How can you say we're going to heal these things, but stay away in some precious way from the word politics? You know what? You and I inhabit a transformational field where everywhere we go, Justin, you have so many people watching today who have had the experience when people from a transformational higher perspective go into business, we transform business. Yeah. When we go into education, we transform education. When we go into medicine, we transform medicine. And the only reason the purveyors of higher consciousness have transformed politics is because we haven't gone there yet. Yeah. And when we go there, when we are willing to stand within that field, laying it down from the level of higher consciousness, the way we know is true, then that will change. Yeah. And everybody knows I've taken the hits. I've taken the mockery. I've taken the, I've taken it all, but you know, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And when whoever it is, whether it's me or anyone else, goes out there to try to do it again, this time the people in this field who know better need to not remain silent.
Yes, 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 yes. Amen on every single one of those fronts. Marianne, in a moment, I want to ask you about love as we start to come into the last bit of this. But before I do that, because I know love is, as I look through your work, it's one of the words that I think appears the most, right? But before I do that, I want to know, because I don't think a lot of people know this. You know, I know there's a story in your book, Tears to Triumph, how you talk about what happened when you were 27, but I don't know if there's something else of like, how did you even get into this?
I couldn't find a way to connect my faith in these higher ideals with my own personal neuroses until I read A Course in Miracles. Now, I'm not saying the answer isn't elsewhere. The answer is in a lot of books and a lot of studies. For me personally, it's just that the Course in Miracles was like, that's where I get it. And mainly because I got from the Course in Miracles, it's the other person in front of you. It's you're opening your heart to the other person in front of you. The person in front of you, the person you're thinking of, is the key. You can't search for God and leave people out of it.
Yeah.
When I started reading the Course in Miracles, Justin, I became so passionately enthusiastic about it that all I wanted to do was study it. And then the idea that I could talk about it was just extraordinary for me. The idea that I could, and I felt, I had a moment when I was first studying the Course in Miracles. And it was just this flash. And I said to the man I was living with at the time, I think I could explain this to my generation. Mm-hmm. And I started just leading groups, and I started working at this place in Los Angeles called the Philosophical Research Society. At the same time I was doing this, AIDS burst onto the scene. And it was much like what's happening now with COVID. But the difference was COVID is very easy to get, but also easy to survive for most people. AIDS was very difficult to get, but very difficult to survive for almost everyone, pretty much everyone at that time. So I was living in Los Angeles. At first, it wasn't that Western medicine wasn't trying, because it was, but it was like with COVID, nobody had a cure yet. Nobody had a cure yet. And organized religion, the institutional organized religious systems, were eerily silent for a while because they were working through their own homophobic issues, et cetera. Yeah. So there was this woman, 31 years old, over in Los Feliz, talking about a God who loves you no matter what, no matter who you are, and who works miracles. So gay men in Los Angeles gave me my career. And then because those lectures became popular, when I wrote a book, that's why it was bought by a publisher. Then Oprah Winfrey read it. Oprah Winfrey had me on her show, and that gave me a wide audience that I would not otherwise have had.
Yeah. Oh, Marianne, well, as a gay man living in Los Angeles, I am grateful to continue carrying the torch.
That is so kind. That is so sweet.
Of all of your magic out into the world.
It's been a love affair over many years now. Yeah. Totally.
So I just have a couple last questions for you, and I know we're coming up on our time, but I could not possibly let you go without talking about this. So love, right? Love is this word that I say, it comes up in all of your work. It's one of these great words. And I want to understand, first of all, what is love? And second, how do we put it into action as we're taking forward in our lives? Yeah.
First of all, in the Course in Miracles, it says, love is beyond the meaning of love. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It aims at removing the barriers to the awareness of love's presence.
Yeah.
Love is something you feel. It can't be defined by words. Words at most are but symbols. Our job is to remove the blocks. The blocks are thoughts of judgment, thoughts of blame, thoughts of living in the past, thoughts of it's not good enough, thoughts that the world owes me anything, thoughts that I'm a victim. When Michelangelo was asked how he created a great statue, he said, I go to the quarry, and the way I see it, God has already created the statue. The Mary, the Pieta, the David, the Moses. He said, my job is to get rid of the excess marble that surrounds that which already was there. Love is who we are. Now, in any given moment, we are making a choice. We make it consciously or we make it unconsciously. I'm either opening my heart or I'm closing it every single moment. The Course in Miracles says miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. If I'm opening my heart, the universe is going to automatically work out. The universe will automatically move into divine intelligence, which is love, and it will correct itself where a correction is necessary. But if I close my heart, I repel instead of attracting the miracles that love would automatically bring forth. So in practical terms, are you here to get something or are you here to give something? Are you showing up or are you phoning it in? Are you thinking about the other person's experience or are you only thinking about yourself? Are you living in the past or are you living in the present? Are you focusing on what they did wrong or remembering that they're really a good person and just freaking give them a break because people make mistakes? It's very, very practical. It's the choices, the attitudinal choices that we make. Now, how do we do that given that living in love is counter to the thought system of fear and lovelessness that dominates the world?
Yes.
The most powerful tool is meditation.
Yes.
And the most powerful tool of meditation is doing it in the morning. Now, I'm a student of the Course in Miracles, which is a 365 days of meditative exercises, but there are many different paths of meditation. But the thought system of the world is so based on fear, and it prevails within the brain waves that we are trained into. So you can't just think yourself out of it. When you meditate, you literally emit different brain waves. That which centers us in love in the morning, the Course in Miracles says even 5 minutes in the morning is enough to guarantee he will be in charge of our thought forms throughout the day. And I just want to say that standing at that magical portal of New Year's Eve, nothing is more powerful than forgiving ourselves and others for all the mistakes we made in 2021.
Hello.
I forgive you. I forgive you. You would have done better if you had known how. I would have done better if I had known how. Forgive the people who voted for Trump. Forgive the people who voted for Biden. Forgive the rich. Forgive the poor. Forgive whatever. Just a general amnesty. Let's just know that beyond all that is the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
And that if we have even an instant of glimpsing that as we enter into this miraculous possibility of a newborn year, and we agree in consciousness right now, that's the world we want, the one on the other side of the veil. And we say, not only do we acknowledge that that realm of ultimate reality and unity exists, we acknowledge that we are on this earth to invoke it, bring it down, and bring it forth. And in this moment, we consciously and willingly surrender everything that we have, everything that we are, all that we have been through, our talents, our failures, our successes, our hands, our feet, everything we could possibly give to the effort. We surrender that. We ask to be used this year as channels for the birth into the world of the world we wish to see. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Amen. Oh, Marianne, one of the things that I'm so grateful for and that we have so much alignment with is the power of meditation, and how it is like the glue, the key that helps us take action and close this gap and bridge the world. So I'm so grateful that you said that, because everyone in my community knows that that's my jam too. And, one of the things that I feel so thankful for, in this conversation and in everything that I always hear from you, is one of the values that this whole community stands together on, which is we believe that most people are good. And and that most people even will want to do better when treated with love and kindness and compassion. And even just the thousands of people who are here today, coming together from across every divide that seems that's there, shows us that we're here, that this transformational world is here, and we are ready, and we are stepping up, and we're taking action. And I just want to thank you so much, Marianne, for carrying that.
You're so welcome.
Torch. And before we close, what do you think is the number one thing that we as a collective or as individuals need to cultivate in our lives in 2022? What would you say that might be?
The ability to hear that small, still voice within. I think that I posted a quote from Ram Dass. I think it's, the quieter you are, the more you can hear.
Yeah.
The voices of the world are so loud. The cacophony of the world is so loud. Through a conscious practicing of stillness and peace and quiet, we develop the inner ear. And as we develop our inner ear, we will hear, go here, go there, do this, do that, say this to those people. There's a prayer in the Course in Miracles for the morning, which is, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? Each of us is assigned, just like every cell in the body is assigned, you to the pancreas, you to the lungs, you to the heart. Some of us are assigned to the arts. Some of us are assigned to do something like you're doing tonight. Some of us are assigned to science. Some of us are assigned to business. And all of us are assigned, yes, to politics. It's a collective assignment. But I'm not given the download for what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're not given the download for what I'm supposed to do. But when all of us become deeply quiet and care to listen and ask, we are each given the assignment for what we are supposed to do.
Amen. Marianne Williamson, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year. And to all of you who are out there, Happy New Year. May 2022 be the year of miracles. We need them and we can have them.
So it is. Amen.
Thank you. God bless you, honey.
Thank you. Woo, right? I told you. If you watch all the way to the very end, I know that you're feeling exactly what I'm feeling right now, because Marianne did not hold back on us. And I truly hope that this video has inspired you to step fully in to the power that is your life, to dream bigger. And that's what we do here in our organization. I run a nonprofit organization called the Dream Bigger Foundation. And what we're here to do is to end racism, not just keep talking about it, not just keep learning about it, not just keep fighting about it, but to come together across what are perceived as divides in spaces of healing and growth and transformation, so that we can finally rise together. I believe, what I truly believe and what I've seen in the world is that most people are good. In fact, like Marianne said, maybe all people are good, okay? All people are going to have that good inside of them. And what we have to do is liberate that love inside of each and every one of us, including you, right? We all have those things that we block our love from, that we hold back in a divide, that we close ourselves down to. And what I hope you learned in this video is that when you liberate that love inside yourself, we are actually changing the world and changing your life along with it. So thank you so much for joining me on that journey. And if you want to experience more, you can of course subscribe here. But I think one of the most exciting things that you can do is make sure that you sign up for our email list, and also go check out my podcast, which you can find anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you just type in Justin Michael Williams, The Kingdom Podcast, you will find all of our episodes. We have over 100 there for you to listen to that are just as engaging and dynamic as this one. So I love you. Welcome to the community, and we rise together.